In the Toxic Avenger remake, when a horrible toxic accident transformed this downtrodden janitor into this Toxic Avenger, it leads on to the quest to save his son and take down a power-feeding tyrant. Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema, where we focus on the film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of the Toxic Avenger remake. Was it good, was it bad, or somewhere right in the middle? And how does it compare to the original if you've seen that just as well? And taking it right in a positive, the Toxic Avenger is really classy and crass within the nature of the means to an end. The way it follows about something that pays homage to the original while doing its own thing manages to have a modern spin on it that still carries on the ambiance of an 80s classic, that adds in the new flair of a modern take, adding in these different pieces here and there, making it hilarious throughout the whole ride that I particularly wasn't expecting, because as someone that was just introduced to the original just recently, I wasn't a huge fan of this, and somehow this manages to took that to another level, being fun, being flamboyant, and what we get out of Peter Dinklage as the main character just really shines a light on his performances, one of the best I've seen as of recently, and managing to look good throughout the way, having good scenery, having good settings that carry on with something that doesn't feel boring at any point of the film. We're getting Jacob Tremblay that plays his son, that adds in this nice spin on what we're getting from the original films, something that adds in a little bit more emotional weight that keeps the story feeling more grounded. And something I like more than original is it feels like the story holds more purpose within the way it follows about. While it may not be as complex in some ways, there's something that holds its own stature. The events go chronologically, not feeling as random as what you may expect. The violence is still bloody, everything still looks great for the effects that it all pulls off. And what we get out of the Toxic Avenger look is just as good for the nature of its doing. And while it does have a little bit more sustainability to the grounded nature that it does with its drama, it still doesn't take itself too seriously whatsoever. What it does with its wordplay, the verbal jokes, the visual humor is just something that entertains throughout the whole ride. What we get out of Kevin Bacon as the villain just really shines as a great performance, never too serious, just having all these quips and notes along the way that adds in so many different things, and Elijah Wood being added to the mix as this sort of downtrodden person just as well on the villain side, but helping along the way here and there. There's something that adds in these little notes about these villains that you don't necessarily get a complex story behind, that manages to carry this film forward because it's evil for the sake of being evil, and being able to follow along that, just taking the film for what it is, carrying on a great light, something that took off the weight from my shoulders, something that I could just watch the film for what it is, not have anything to worry about the complexities and deep methodical backstories of these characters for, and still being able to have some grounded emotional weight when you're following along the Toxic Avenger and what he's doing when trying to regain his son back, having some good themes that carry the story along the way. Which takes me into the mix elements. For those that like the original or haven't been introduced to the original, it's hard for me to personally speak on whether it will speak on your bias toward the film, or if you have no bias on the original. For me personally, I have not watched or really heard of it until this one was announced. And so having it watched the original just recently, I wasn't a big fan of the original. And so it could throw off what I could recommend, whether I would say it works for you because you like the original, or maybe you like it less because of that. I enjoy this more than the original, but as for the story and intentions of the original, I think the original still did some things on a better quality level, even if there's some things that come about the way that timeline for the 80s was certainly its own thing, and I'm particular on my style of comedy, And that's where I was kind of nervous going into this new one, but surprisingly, it worked for me along the way because of that added bonus of the drama of the kid being involved with the Toxic Avenger, with that fatherhood theme that I personally connect to a lot more. But those that aren't necessarily looking to have emotion added to what we got from the original or original four films, there's something about that could throw some people off. That if you're a fan of the original, you may not care for this one just as much just because of that sake. It may have some things that you just don't necessarily care for because the original does have the crassness just like this one, but it doesn't necessarily have as much of a grounded nature, as much of a thematic balance that you need to follow along. So this one is slightly more complex with its in its storyline, even if it's something you still don't take seriously for what it goes along. There's some things that may change the tone that what you liked in the original are not placed within this one, or vice versa, just depending. So it's hard for me to personally suggest or predict whether or not you would exactly like what we get out of this new one. Which takes me right into the negatives. For those that are wanting something a little bit more complex, this one is absent of what that is. Of course, like I mentioned, there is a little bit more groundedness, a little more drama, a little bit more of the fatherhood theme that you can actually get something compared to what we got out of the crassness and everything from the 80s film. But it certainly does have a different tone that could take away from those that I like the original that much more. And there is some parts of the quality of the story that is a little lacking. It feels a little overly silly when it's also covering the things that you are taking seriously. So there could be a little bit of a genre blend that isn't necessarily there for everyone. They remove the romance of him finding a girl to love. They add in and replace someone that he has to help and follow about along the way that certainly could change out the notes of whether you like it, whether you don't, and some things that just differ within the story quality as a whole. So that's just my personal thoughts on the Toxic Avenger remake, which I have to rate a simply 7.5 out of 10. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of the Toxic Avenger remake. Was it good? Was it bad? Or somewhere right in the middle? Or if you're now looking to see the film or not, based on my recommendations, what do you think about it compared to the original or the original franchise? Let me know what you think of this franchise as a whole, and make sure to like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you haven't already to join in film culture community where we talk about the love of cinema as a whole. So that's just all, and make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.